Rallick leaned back in his chair, his scaled hands gripping the edges of the holographic screen. The silence of Earth had persisted for decades, but now, the mystery gnawed at him like never before. The Galactic Union, a coalition of countless species spanning hundreds of star systems, had long monitored the strange little planet on the outskirts of its reach. Humanity, once loud and chaotic, had gone silent. Unthinkable, Rallick muttered, his voice barely audible in the empty chamber. He was an Elzarian historian, a specialist in ancient civilizations and the oddities of extinction. Yet nothing in his centuries of study prepared him for this. 50 years ago, the last human signal, a simple radio transmission, fizzled out. At first, the Union dismissed it. Planets rise and fall. Species evolve and fade. But this was different. There were no signs of war, no detectable plagues, and no cataclysms in the planet's ecosystem. Earth had simply stopped. Rallick's assistant, a young Veiler with crystalline skin, entered the room, holding a datapad. "Sir, the investigation team is ready. They await your orders to land." Rallick nodded, his orange eyes narrowing as he stood. "Prepare the shuttle. If humanity has truly vanished, we must understand why. Their fate might hold lessons for us all." As the investigation team descended through Earth's atmosphere, they were struck by the eerie beauty of the planet below. Vast cities stood untouched, their glass towers reflecting the golden sunlight. Forests thrived where once there had been highways. Rivers ran clean and pure, as though nature had reclaimed the world with gentle hands. "Are we certain this is the same Earth?" one of the scientists muttered, her 4 eyes blinking in unison. Rallick ignored the comment. His gaze was fixed on the ruins of the city the humans had called New York. The structures stood tall and proud, but the streets were empty. No humans, no animals. Not even insects buzzed in the air. The shuttle landed in the middle of a vast square surrounded by towering buildings. A massive statue, weathered by time, loomed over them. A woman holding a torch high, her face carved with determination. Rallick stepped onto the ground, his boots crunching against fine dust. "Begin scanning for any biological remnants. I want every corner of this city examined." The team spread out, their devices humming softly as they searched for clues. Hours passed, and the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deserted streets. "Sir," the Veiler assistant called, his voice trembling. "We found something." Rallick hurried to the location. Inside a grand building with the words Public Library etched above its entrance, the team had uncovered a strange device. It was a cube, its surface shimmering with faint blue light. "It's emitting a signal," the assistant explained. "Encoded. It seems it's meant for us." Rallick leaned closer, his sharp features reflected in the cube's surface. "Activate it." The cube hummed, and a projection flickered to life. It was a human, an older man with silver hair and deep-set eyes. He wore a simple suit, his expression calm yet sorrowful. "To those who come after," the projection began, the words resonating in perfect galactic standard. "Remember us." Rallick felt a chill run through his body. The projection continued. "We were humanity, a species of dreamers, fighters and survivors. We built wonders and made mistakes. We reached for the stars and stumbled along the way. But in the end, we faced a choice, one that no species should ever have to make." The projection paused, as though allowing the weight of the words to sink in. "We chose to leave, not out of fear, but out of necessity. The details do not matter now. What matters is what we left behind, for you." Rallick's eyes darted to the cube. "Pause the message. Scan the cube's contents immediately." The team worked quickly, their scanners revealing layers of data hidden within. Millions of files, art, literature, science, and history, all preserved in meticulous detail. The projection resumed. "Do not mourn us. We did not vanish. We transformed. If you are hearing this, It means you have the capacity to understand, to learn. Take what we have left and grow. But remember this, our story is not over. The projection faded, leaving the room in silence. Rallick stood frozen, his mind racing. Humanity had not simply died out. They had orchestrated their own disappearance, leaving behind their legacy as a gift or perhaps a warning. This is impossible, one of the scientists whispered. Rallick turned to his team, his voice steady but filled with urgency. We must report this to the Galactic Union immediately. Humanity may be gone, but their story has only just begun. As they prepared to leave, Rallick glanced one last time at the shimmering cube. He couldn't help but wonder, where had humanity gone? And why did their departure feel less like an end and more like the beginning of something far greater? Rallick stood at the edge of the observation deck, staring out at Jupiter's moons. Io, with its sulfuric volcanic surface, seemed so alien, so far removed from the peaceful Earth he had just left behind. Yet it was here that the next phase of their investigation would unfold. The archive is hidden beneath the surface, said Teloris, a Xarian member of the team, her voice sharp as she glanced at her console. We have to dig through the volcanic rock to reach it. The energy readings are off the charts. Rallick nodded. He had heard rumors of humanity's hidden vaults, of secret troves of knowledge and technology scattered across the galaxy. Yet nothing had prepared him for the scale of what they were about to uncover. The cube from Earth had given them just a glimpse of what might lay within humanity's final gift. As their shuttle descended toward Io's surface, the volcanic eruptions around them lit the dark sky like distant fireworks. It was a dangerous place, but Rallick knew the risk was necessary. Humanity's past was no longer just history. It was a key to the future. They arrived at the site, a massive opening in the ground surrounded by molten rivers. In the distance, dark tunnels descended deep into the moon. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud, and the team moved swiftly to unload their equipment. Teloris led the way, using her advanced tools to analyze the surrounding area. The readings are fluctuating. Whatever's down there, it's powerful. Rallick gave a sharp nod. Let's move. We don't know how much time we have. They descended into the tunnels, their path lit by the faint glow of their gear. The air grew thicker as they went deeper, and the heat became almost unbearable. But it wasn't the heat that concerned Rallick. It was the feeling of something ancient, something massive, just beyond the walls. The deeper they went, the more the tunnel seemed to open up, until they found themselves in a cavern unlike any Rallick had seen. The walls were covered in glowing symbols, human script mixed with strange, geometric patterns he couldn't decipher. The cavern stretched so wide that it felt as though they were standing inside an entire building. And then they saw it. At the far end of the cavern stood a massive structure, a towering archive unlike anything they had ever imagined. It was a metallic monument, smooth and shining, with rows of data spires rising from the ground like ancient trees. Some of the spires were cracked, others had been scorched by time, but the archive itself remained intact. Is this a monument? One of the scientists gasped, her voice full of awe. Rallick stepped forward, his eyes tracing the architecture. This wasn't just a storage facility. It was a statement, an act of defiance, or perhaps of remembrance. Humanity had built this with a purpose far beyond simply preserving their knowledge. They had built it to last. We need to start pulling data, Rallick instructed. This is what we came for. The answers to humanity's disappearance might be hidden here. The team moved quickly, setting up their devices to interface with the archive. It hummed to life as if recognizing their presence, and the walls flickered with light. Screens materialized from thin air, displaying lines of text and images. The data was staggering: human history, art, science, and entire libraries of information. But then, something caught Rallick's attention. He walked toward one of the large central screens, his fingers tracing the holographic image that appeared before him. It was a map, showing not only Earth but dozens of planets. Many he had never heard of before. Some of them were beyond the Galactic Union's known territories. "Wait," Rallick muttered, zooming in on the map. There was a star system on the edge of the map, its coordinates marked with a strange symbol. "This doesn't make sense. These coordinates, they're not in our records." One of the scientists, a young Trelshi, stepped forward. "It's possible humanity found a way to travel beyond our known galaxy." Rallick's mind raced. If humanity had found a way to leave the galaxy, could they have foreseen something the Union hadn't? A new threat, or perhaps a new beginning. The hologram shifted, and Rallick found himself staring at a series of documents. They were written in human script but encoded with layers of encryption. With a flick of his fingers, he cracked the code. What appeared on the screen made his heart race. The documents detailed humanity's final decision. An evacuation, not just of Earth, but of their entire species. The message read, "We have learned that there are threats beyond the stars that even our greatest minds cannot comprehend. Our people will leave, not out of fear, but because we can no longer stand idly by. We leave for the future, for the unknown. Our legacy will endure, but we must go now." Rallick's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just a warning. It was a call to action. Humanity had left, but they had left behind something crucial. Their knowledge, their wisdom, and most importantly, a blueprint for survival. "We have to report this," Rallick said quietly, turning to the team. "The Union needs to know what humanity knew. We might be facing something they couldn't defeat, something that forced them to leave. But they didn't go quietly. They left a message, and it's up to us to ensure it's heard." As the team continued to explore the archive, Rallick couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's final act of survival might one day save the Union, or doom it. The galaxy was not as safe as they had believed. Back aboard their shuttle, Rallick couldn't stop thinking about what they had uncovered. The archive on Io had given them answers, but those answers only raised more questions. Humanity had left the galaxy, and their reasons for doing so were not entirely clear. Yet, one thing was certain: they had left behind knowledge. Powerful, dangerous knowledge. And it was now in the hands of the Galactic Union. The shuttle's lights flickered as it exited Io's orbit, heading back to the Union's central station. The team remained silent, each member deep in thought. Rallick sat at the front, gazing out at the stars. It was hard to focus on anything but the mysterious coordinates humanity had left behind. Where had they gone? And why had they believed it was necessary to leave? Tuluris, the Xarian, finally broke the silence. "The Uplift Protocol. That's what it's called, isn't it?" Rallick turned his head, frowning. "Yes, but the Uplift Protocol isn't just a technology or a blueprint. It's a philosophy, a way of thinking. Humanity believed in something greater than themselves. They wanted to uplift all of us, to guide us to a future where division didn't destroy us." The young Trelshi scientist, Lissa, spoke up. "What does that mean? Uplift us how?" "By teaching us to evolve," Rallick said slowly. "To grow together. They didn't just leave behind technological blueprints. They left us a framework for cooperation, for unity. If the Galactic Union embraces the Uplift Protocol, we could unlock the potential of countless species. We could move beyond our petty divisions." "But what if it's too dangerous?" Lissa asked, her voice trembling. "What if humanity left because they realized they couldn't trust anyone?" Rallick didn't answer immediately. He thought about Earth, the beauty of its cities, the peaceful forests, the vast oceans. And then he thought about the fear in humanity's final message. "We leave not out of fear, but out of necessity." "It's a risk we'll have to take," he said, his voice steady. "The Union must see the value in what humanity left behind. We need to bring this message to the Council." Hours later, they arrived at the Union's central station, a sprawling hub located on a massive space station in the middle of the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species docked here, and Rallick could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders as he prepared to meet with the Council. He knew this was bigger than any individual. This was about the future of the galaxy itself. The council chamber was vast, its walls made of polished stone that glimmered like starlight. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy sat in their seats, their eyes focused on Rallick as he entered with his team. The air was thick with tension. Rallick of Elzar, the head of the council, a large orc called Gore, rumbled. "We have heard of your discovery. You claim that humanity's disappearance is tied to a protocol that could change the future of our union. But why should we trust the knowledge of a species that chose to leave?" Rallick stood tall, his voice calm but firm. Humanity did not leave because they were weak. They left because they foresaw a future that none of us could yet comprehend. They understood that unity was the only way to survive. Their protocol is not a weapon. It is a path, a way for us to evolve together, to face whatever threats lie ahead. Gore's eyes narrowed. And what exactly does this protocol entail? Rallick motioned to his team, and the holographic map of the Uplift protocol appeared before the council. Images of advanced technology, scientific breakthroughs, and complex social systems filled the air. The protocol contains blueprints for interspecies cooperation, Rallick explained. It outlines how different species, how we all, can overcome the barriers that divide us. It is not simply about technology. It is about trust, about working together for a common purpose. It teaches us to share our knowledge, to teach each other, and to create a new kind of society, one where we do not just survive, but thrive. For a moment, the room was silent. Rallick could feel the weight of the council's gaze upon him. He knew many of them were skeptical. After all, the Union had been built on individual power, on competition. The idea of unity was both foreign and unsettling to some. Finally, one of the delegates, a sharp-eyed Wyrcan from the mining planet of Zalnar, spoke. "This is all well and good, Rallick, but you ask us to trust a protocol from a species that no longer exists. How do we know that this Uplift protocol isn't a trap? What if humanity's so-called gift is something we cannot control?" Rallick's voice was calm, but the intensity in his eyes grew. "I understand your fear. I do. But we are already facing threats we cannot control. The galaxy is full of dangers we can't predict. Threats from beyond the stars, from within our own ranks. Humanity left us this protocol not to control us, but to save us. They saw what was coming, and they knew that only together could we face it." There was a long pause as the council members exchanged glances. Rallick could see the seeds of doubt in their eyes, but also something else, a flicker of hope. The idea of unity, of sharing knowledge, was powerful. Gore leaned forward, his massive hands resting on the table. "You ask us to trust the unknown, Rallick, but perhaps that is the only way forward." Rallick nodded. "Yes, we have no choice but to trust. For if we do not, the future of the galaxy may be lost." As the meeting drew to a close, Rallick felt the weight of his words settle over him. The protocol was their only chance, an uncertain path, but a path nonetheless. The decision was now in the hands of the Union. Would they choose unity, or would they allow division to tear them apart? Rallick could only wait for their answer. Rallick stood before the council, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never felt this nervous before. The fate of the galaxy seemed to hang on his words. The vast room was filled with delegates from all corners of the universe, their eyes fixed on him. Even Gore, the head of the council, was silent, waiting for him to speak. "It's not just a theory," Rallick said, his voice steady, despite the pressure mounting on him. "The Uplift Protocol is humanity's gift. They didn't leave us because they were weak. They left because they saw something we could not. A future where we stand together, or we fall apart." The room was quiet, the hum of the station's engines faint in the background. Some of the delegates exchanged uncertain glances. Rallick knew that convincing them would not be easy. The Union was built on a foundation of competition, each species striving to be the strongest, the smartest. Unity was a foreign concept. You ask us to trust in something that was left behind by a species that no longer exists. A voice called out from the back. It belonged to a delegate from the Trelshi, a race known for their sharp intellect and skepticism. How can we be sure this protocol is not some form of manipulation? Something that will lead us into the same fate humanity faced. Rallick turned to face her, his eyes calm but intense. We are already facing the unknown. There are forces out there, beyond our galaxy, that we do not fully understand. Humanity knew this, and that is why they chose to leave. But they didn't abandon us. They left a map, a way for us to survive the threats we cannot yet see. The protocol isn't a weapon. It's a blueprint for survival. The Trelshi delegate looked unconvinced, but others in the room began to murmur, considering his words. Rallick could feel a shift, but the council was still divided. He knew he needed more than just words to convince them. He needed to show them the truth. We have been given the tools to understand their thinking. Rallick continued, raising his hand. The data humanity left behind goes beyond just technology. It's a roadmap for how different species can work together, how we can share our knowledge, resources, and ideas to create something stronger than any one of us could achieve alone. Gore, the orc leader, leaned forward. His massive hands rested on the table, his expression unreadable. "And what exactly does this protocol entail?" he asked, his voice deep and slow. Rallick took a deep breath. The protocol outlines a process where species can evolve not just in technology but in their thinking. It's about understanding one another, building trust, and sharing what we know. It's about breaking down the barriers of suspicion and competition. Humanity believed that if the galaxy could work together, truly work together, nothing would be able to destroy us. There was a long silence as the council members processed this information. Rallick knew they were grappling with the idea. It was a massive shift from how the Union had operated for centuries. But the signs were there. The galaxy was growing more unstable, and the Union's fractured approach was no longer enough to face the unknown threats on the horizon. Finally, a delegate from the Kin people, known for their cautious nature, spoke up. "And what is the cost of this uplift? What will it take from us to follow this protocol?" Rallick met his gaze, his expression resolute. "The cost is our willingness to change. It's the end of old rivalries, the end of isolation. It's about opening ourselves to the idea that we are not alone in this galaxy, that we are stronger together than apart. Humanity left us this legacy because they believed in the future, a future where we stand united, not divided." The tension in the room was palpable. Rallick could feel the weight of the decision that hung in the air. Would the council embrace the uplift protocol, or would they continue down the same path of division and distrust? After what felt like an eternity, Gore spoke again. "Rallick, we are not fools. We understand the value of unity. But you ask us to trust in something we cannot fully see. You ask us to place our faith in something left behind by a species that no longer exists." Rallick nodded slowly. "I understand your fear, but we have no choice. The galaxy is changing. The threats we face will not be defeated by war or by technology alone. We must evolve together, or we will be torn apart." Gore looked at the other delegates, his eyes scanning the room. The murmurs grew louder, some voices in agreement, others still unsure. Finally, he turned back to Rallick. "We will consider your proposal," Gore said, his tone heavy with finality. "But this is not an easy decision. It will take time. The council will need to study the protocol more thoroughly before we can make any move." Rallick felt a mix of relief and frustration. He knew this wasn't the answer he had hoped for, but it was a step forward. The protocol was not just a gift from humanity. It was a challenge, a test, and the Union would have to decide whether it was ready to face it. As the meeting came to an end, Rallick couldn't help but wonder about the future. Humanity had given them a chance, but it was up to the galaxy to take it. And with every passing moment, the unknown threats they had warned about grew closer. The days following the council meeting were tense. Rallick couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Council had agreed to study the Uplift Protocol, but that was just a first step. The decision still hung in the balance, and every day spent debating was another day the galaxy was vulnerable to unknown threats. Rallick's mind was consumed by the protocol, but something else began to gnaw at him. The signs were there, subtle, almost unnoticed by others, but he could feel it. There was something more happening behind the scenes, something the Council hadn't considered. It had started with a series of strange energy spikes detected along the outer edges of the galaxy. The readings were erratic, and at first, no one thought much of it. But as the days went by, the spikes became more frequent, more intense. Something, or someone, was out there, and they weren't making their presence known in the usual way. Rallick stood on the observation deck of the Union Central Station, staring out into the vast darkness of space. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden vibration that shook the station. He turned toward the source, an alert flashing across the console. "Sir," a voice called out. It was Lissa, the young Trelshi scientist from his team. She was at the station, her face pale. "There's been an anomaly in the outer sector. We need to investigate immediately." Rallick's heart raced. What kind of anomaly? "It's not just a spike in energy," Lissa replied, her voice urgent. "It's something bigger, and it's moving toward us." Rallick didn't waste a second. He sprinted toward the control room, his mind racing. The Council had been too focused on the protocol, too focused on humanity's gift. They had missed the warning signs. The truth was simple. The galaxy was already under attack. Within minutes, Rallick and Lissa were aboard a shuttle, heading toward the source of the disturbance. The dark expanse of space stretched out before them as the shuttle broke free from the station's orbit. Rallick tried to focus, tried to keep his thoughts clear, but the weight of the situation was overwhelming. Something was out there, something that humanity had feared. As they neared the outer sector, the readings on their instruments began to shift. The energy spikes were now constant, forming a strange pattern that seemed almost deliberate. It wasn't a natural occurrence. Someone, or something, was manipulating the energy in a way Rallick had never seen before. "Do you see this?" Lissa whispered, pointing to the monitor. "The energy field. It's expanding. It's like something is coming through." Rallick's eyes widened. "We need to get closer." They pushed the shuttle forward, weaving through the vast stretches of space. In the distance, they saw it, an enormous shape, its outline barely visible against the backdrop of stars. The energy readings were off the charts now, pulsing in rhythmic waves. "Is it a ship?" Lissa asked, her voice trembling. Rallick shook his head. "I don't think so. It's something else." As they approached the anomaly, the outline of the shape became clearer. It wasn't a ship, but a massive, swirling mass of energy. It was as though the fabric of space itself was being twisted, stretched. And in the center of this disturbance, there was a dark void, a gaping wound in the galaxy. It looked like a rip in the very fabric of reality. Lissa's voice cracked as she spoke. "What is that?" Rallick's heart sank. "Whatever it is, it's not from our galaxy. This isn't a natural event. This is an invasion." They hovered in silence, the shuttle's engines humming softly as they watched the anomaly. The rip in space began to grow, expanding outward, its edges shimmering with dangerous energy. Rallick could feel the power of it, an overwhelming force that seemed to tug at the very core of his being. "This is what humanity feared," Rallick said quietly. "This is what they saw coming." Before Lissa could respond, the communications console crackled to life. It was a message from the Union Central Station. "Rallick," the voice of the Council leader, Gore, came through, sharp and urgent. "We've detected the same anomaly. It's expanding quickly. You need to return immediately. We're preparing for a full-scale defense." Rallick's mind raced. The Union was too late. The enemy, whatever it was already here. "We can't wait for defense," Rallick responded, his voice firm. "This anomaly, whatever it is a weapon. We need to understand it before it destroys everything. He turned to Lissa. Prepare for an EVA suit deployment. We're going in. Lissa hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Understood. With that, they suited up, preparing to venture into the heart of the anomaly. The shuttle drifted closer, and Rallick's eyes remained fixed on the growing void. He had no idea what lay beyond the rip in space, but he knew one thing for sure. Humanity had seen this coming, and their protocol, their final message, wasn't just about unity. It was about survival. As Rallick and Lissa made their preparations, the rest of the galaxy remained oblivious to the true nature of the threat. The silent invasion had begun. The question now was whether the Union would survive it. The shuttle's engines hummed softly, the only sound breaking the tense silence between Rallick and Lissa. Outside the viewports, the anomaly loomed large, a rip in space, a gaping wound in the fabric of the galaxy. Rallick's eyes were locked on the swirling mass of energy, his mind racing with thoughts. He had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. This was beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. Lissa, busy adjusting the shuttle's controls, glanced at him nervously. What do you think we'll find inside? This thing, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Rallick turned to her, his expression focused. I don't know, Lissa, but I'm sure of one thing. Humanity was right to leave. They knew this would happen. Lissa swallowed hard. Then why didn't they leave us a way to stop it? Rallick didn't answer immediately. He knew the question was haunting them both. Humanity had given the galaxy the uplift protocol, a message of unity, a call to work together for survival. But they hadn't left a guide for facing this kind of threat. Perhaps they couldn't. Perhaps they hadn't known exactly what it was. We'll find out soon enough, Rallick said, his voice steady. Just stay focused. We need to learn everything we can before it's too late. The shuttle approached the anomaly. The air seemed to thicken with every passing second. Rallick's senses were on edge. This wasn't just an energy field or some strange cosmic event. It was alive, pulsing with a rhythm that was almost conscious. Lissa's fingers flew over the controls, trying to keep the shuttle steady as they drifted closer. I've never seen anything like this in my life, she muttered under her breath. It's like the entire space around us is bending. Rallick's gaze never left the anomaly. It's not bending space, he said quietly. It's tearing it apart. And once it does, nothing will be left. The shuttle's engines sputtered as they moved closer to the core of the rip. Rallick could feel the immense pull of the void drawing them in. Despite his best efforts, the ship began to drift towards the center of the anomaly. Rallick, Lissa said urgently, her voice trembling. We can't stop. The gravitational force is too strong. He gripped the control panel, fighting against the pull. Hold on, he said through clenched teeth. I'm going to try to stabilize us. For a moment, everything felt like it was spinning out of control. The shuttle systems flickered, and the display screens went blank. The only thing Rallick could hear was the hum of the engines struggling to keep them from being pulled in completely. Then, just as quickly as it started, the pull weakened. The shuttle drifted into the heart of the void. The darkness outside was absolute, suffocating. There was no light. No stars, just a cold, empty blackness. Lissa looked out the viewport, her breath catching in her throat. Where are we? This isn't the galaxy anymore. Rallick didn't answer at first. His gaze was fixed on the strange energy waves that now surrounded them. They were moving, fluctuating, almost as though they were searching for something. The air was thick with the unknown, the gravity of it pressing down on him. Whatever lay ahead, Rallick knew that this wasn't just a natural phenomenon. This was a presence, a conscious force. I think we're inside the anomaly, Rallick said. But it's not a place. It's something else. A rift. Lissa's voice quivered. A rift. A rift to what? Rallick turned to her, his eyes grim. I don't know, but I think humanity knew. This isn't a weapon or some natural disaster. It's a doorway. and whatever is on the other side. He paused. We need to stop it before it gets through. As he spoke, the shuttle sensors flickered back to life. A message appeared on the main console, one that wasn't there before. The words were clear, but the language was unfamiliar. It wasn't anything that Rallick had ever seen, yet it resonated with a deep sense of understanding. "We're not alone," Lissa said softly, her eyes wide with shock. "There's something in here with us." Rallick moved closer to the console, his heart racing as he tried to decipher the message. But before he could respond, the shuttle shuddered violently. A bright flash of light exploded from the center of the anomaly, illuminating the dark void around them. The walls of the rift pulsed with energy, and a low hum filled the cabin. "It's opening," Lissa shouted, her voice filled with panic. Rallick braced himself, gripping the seat as the shuttle shook. The walls of the rift seemed to stretch and warp, as if reality itself was bending. The energy around them was suffocating, closing in on them like a tightening fist. The shuttle was falling, plummeting into the depths of the void. But Rallick wasn't ready to give up. Humanity's legacy, the protocol they left behind, was their last hope. He had to survive. They had to survive. "We need to get out of here," Lissa cried. "We're not leaving," Rallick said, determination filling his voice. "Not until we understand what's happening. We need to know what's coming through this rift." As the shuttle descended deeper into the heart of the anomaly, Rallick's mind raced. The protocol wasn't just about unity. It was about facing the unknown together. And whatever was coming through this rift, they would have to face it as one. The shuttle trembled as it fell deeper into the heart of the anomaly. Rallick's knuckles were white as he gripped the console, trying to keep them steady. The energy surrounding them grew stronger, vibrating through the shuttle's frame. It was as if the very air was alive, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the beating of Rallick's heart. Lissa, her eyes wide with fear, held on to the seat beside her. "This isn't just an anomaly anymore, Rallick," she whispered. It's a doorway, a portal to something else." Rallick didn't respond immediately. He was too focused on keeping the shuttle from being torn apart. The walls of the rift pulsed and shifted, their dark edges shifting with strange patterns that seemed almost intelligent. The gravitational pull had almost disappeared, but the tension in the air was palpable. "This is what humanity feared," Rallick said, his voice quiet but determined. "This is the threat they saw coming, and they left us with the uplift protocol to face it." Lissa's face was pale as she glanced around the shuttle. "But how can we face something like this? We don't even know what's on the other side. If humanity couldn't stop it, what hope do we have?" Rallick's eyes were filled with determination. The protocol was never just about survival. It's about unity, about working together. Humanity didn't just leave us with knowledge. They left us with a chance to face this, not as individuals, but as a galaxy. If we stand together, we might have a chance. But even as he spoke, the shuttle began to shake violently. A massive shockwave pulsed through the rift, sending them spiraling toward a new destination. Through the viewport, Rallick saw a flash of light, a brilliant burst of energy that ripped through the darkness, revealing the true scale of the portal. Beyond the rift was something far larger than anything he could have imagined. A massive fleet, unlike any ships the galaxy had ever seen. "They're here," Lissa breathed, staring in horror. Rallick's stomach twisted as he looked out at the fleet. There were hundreds, no, thousands, of enormous ships, their dark silhouettes moving in unison, as if guided by a single mind. They were unlike anything the galaxy had encountered. But the most terrifying part was what Rallick felt deep inside him. It wasn't just the size of the fleet that terrified him. It was the presence that came with it. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a reckoning. And it was unlike any war they had fought before. Lissa turned to him, her voice frantic. "Rallick, we can't fight that. There's no way we can defeat them." Rallick's mind raced. The Union was fractured. The species had their differences. But if they didn't unite now, If they didn't come together as humanity had hoped, they would be wiped out. The protocol wasn't just about sharing knowledge. It was about trust. It was about believing in one another, believing that together they could overcome the impossible. "We have to try," he said, his voice hardening with resolve. "We don't have a choice. We'll need the Council's help. We'll need everyone. Trelshi, Orc, Riken, all of them. This is it. The galaxy either stands together, or we fall." Lissa looked uncertain but nodded. She knew he was right. There was no time to waste. As the fleet in the distance continued to move closer, the rift behind them began to close. The shuttle systems flickered once more, but Relic's thoughts were clear. They had a message, a last chance. Humanity's gift wasn't just about survival. It was about more than just technology or knowledge. It was about understanding one another, no matter the differences. "We need to warn the Union," Relic said. "They need to know what's coming." Back at the Union's central hub, the Council was already preparing for battle. The news of the anomaly had reached them, but they hadn't yet fully understood the magnitude of the threat. As Relic and Lissa raced toward the main control room, they were met by Gore, the leader of the Council, who had been preparing for a defensive strategy. "Relic, what news?" Gore asked, his massive form tense with urgency. Relic didn't waste time. "It's worse than we thought. The anomaly is a portal, a doorway. And what's coming through is a fleet, unlike anything we've seen. We can't stop them with weapons alone. The only chance we have is if the galaxy unites." Gore stared at him for a moment, his eyes narrowing. "Unite," he repeated. "You're asking the Council to trust one another, to stand together when we've been divided for centuries." Relic nodded. "We don't have time for division anymore." Humanity knew this. They saw the future we're facing. They left us with the protocol for a reason. It's the only way we can survive this. If we don't work together, truly together, there's no future left. For a long moment, Gore said nothing. The tension in the room was thick. Relic could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The Council was divided, but the threat looming outside was even greater than their divisions. They had to make a choice. Finally, Gore spoke. "Then let it be so. We will put aside our differences for the sake of the galaxy." Relic's heart pounded with hope. It wasn't too late. The galaxy could unite, but they needed more than just words. They needed action, and it would have to come soon.